to welcome our Galaxy Stage host. You know him, folks. He's a voice actor and a whole lot of awesome other things. You know him, folks. Give it up for David Collins!
Hey. Star Wars Celebration Chicago 2019. How you doing? Come on, after that trailer this morning, how you doing? Oh, the Rise of Skywalker. That was an unbelievable trailer. We're already off to such a fantastic start. We're just getting started here at Star Wars Celebration, and certainly right here on the Galaxy Stage, we have so much great Star Wars material to cover. And right now, I'm very, very excited, not only about the content that we're going to talk about, Lego and Star Wars, right? But we have panelists who create Lego Star Wars from all over the world, just backstage. They can hear you. You want to let them know? You excited to meet them? Well, I'm excited to bring them out, but before we do that, I just want to say, what happened 20 years ago that was really, really amazing? Does anyone know this is the 20th anniversary of what? I thought you were going to say Phantom Menace, but you're right. It is the 20th anniversary of Lego Star Wars as well. Something amazing happened to both Lego and Star Wars 20 years ago, and we have been having fun with the Lego bricks, with the animation, with the video games ever since. Before we bring out our panels, I want to show a highlight video of all of the amazing memories that we've had with Lego Star Wars over the last 20 years. Let's take a look.
Need your help. Build us more ships.
Lego and Star Wars join forces for the first time.
I love Lego Star Wars.
That was a closet.
Oh, wait.
Levitating spaceship!
Completely amazing.
Missed me!
Blast! They got away again.
"20 years of Lego Star Wars." We've got the creators backstage. You ready to meet them? Please welcome the creators of Lego Star Wars to the Galaxy Stage. Come on up. Hey, Douglas. Good to see you. Hey. Good to see you. Hey. Welcome, welcome. Hey, guys. How you doing? Welcome. Great to have you all here. Pick up my notes here. Oopsie. Why don't we go ahead and start by introducing yourselves to the audience and telling everybody a little bit about what you do, because we have a really wide range of talent on this stage, from animation, video games, and of course, making the great Lego bricks that we love, all here on stage. Why don't we go ahead and start with you, Jens?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jens Grunwald Frederiksen. I'm design director on Lego Star Wars, so I'm overseeing the product development.
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Chris Gallagher. I'm Director of Product Development at Lucasfilm, so I work on the product as well. And I work very closely with the ends on that.
Welcome.
Hi everybody, I'm Teresa Christofferson. I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for LEGO Star Wars, so working with all these nice people.
Welcome to the stage.
Hi, I'm Mike Price. I wrote Droid Tales, Yoda Chronicles, Padawan Menace, and a bunch of other LEGO Star Wars.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Keith Malone. I'm executive producer for LEGO and have had the privilege to make a lot of the content. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed over the years.
Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Josh Rhimes. I'm with Lucasfilm, Director of Live Action Animation Series Development, and I cover all of our great LEGO animated content.
Hey, I'm Jez Pardon. I'm the head of animation for TT Games, and we make the LEGO video games.
Yeah.
And I'm Douglas Riley. I'm the head of Lucasfilm Games. Me and my team work with the folks at TT Games to make them come to life.
Welcome. Welcome, everybody. So as you can see, video games, animation, and of course the LEGO bricks themselves, welcome. Now, you guys must have the best time at your jobs because LEGO is so fun. Not only Star Wars, but LEGO, the humor, everything. But I wanted to ask any of you the following question, which is, what was your first experience with LEGO? Were you an adult? Were you a kid? Maybe some of your fondest memories? Anyone want to start?
I can start.
Okay.
I can only say LEGO has been a big part of my life as far as I can remember. My first experiences with LEGO, that was some of the first LEGO train sets, and later LEGO City and so on, and I had a bunch of those. I had so much. And then came LEGO Technic, and I was playing with that. I was pretty old when I was still playing a lot with that. And then, well, now I've been working for LEGO for 21 years. So
wow.
It's been such a big part of my life.
Your childhood, and then, of course, now your career.
Yeah.
What an incredible job. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll
Chris?
chime in. Similar to Jens, my first experience was as a kid playing with Lego, and I had it as a toy. And I have two brothers, so we got some of the Lego City sets, but we didn't kind of keep them separate. So we ended up with a giant bucket of bricks that we would free build out of. And I will admit, I was not a great builder. I think my pinnacle creation was sort of just a figure out of square and rectangle bricks. That was kind of Frankenstein style. So it was pretty much the stick figure.
We all start
building,
there.
I guess.
Yeah. That's great. Anyone else?
Sure. I actually have a very vivid memory because I'm reminded by my parents time to time about this. So please, no kids follow this example. But I was in first grade, and my dad came back from a business trip from Copenhagen and brought me back classic Lego castle. It's item 375 for those of you who want to buy it on eBay. But I woke up and it was in my room first thing in the morning, and I had to go to school, and I started building it, and I was super excited. And again, from what I'm reminded from time to time, I apparently caused such a fuss at school. My mom had to come get me in the middle of the day, bring me back home so I could finish building the set. So that's my Lego memory.
We can all relate. Anyone else? Maybe Jeremy, Teresa, any thoughts about Lego?
Yeah, I can go. I mean, my first experience with Lego goes way back. Both my parents worked at the Lego production sites.
Wow!
Some of my best childhood memories was actually going to work with my dad and being driven around in these big, strollers full of bricks, which was just not that compliant, but surely a lot of fun.
Wow. Quite literally a Lego family. That's amazing. Yeah.
My experience was more as a dad. The running theme of my commentary today will be about how old I am. I first saw Lego when I was a teenager. My friend had a dad who went to Europe and brought some. This is back in the 70s. But then as a dad, my son was really into them, especially Bionicles. I don't know if any Bionicle fans here. But
yeah.
So there was a period there about 10 years ago when he was 10 where I had to get every single one. And as you know, the names are all very complicated. So he'd get really mad at me. No, that's not Krakataka Maka Waka, that's Maka Baka Waka. So I was running around getting all the Bionicles, so we were really familiar with those. And then later, of course, working with the shows, just really getting into it again.
I should have gone before, and my story is nowhere near as funny or entertaining as those, but my earliest memory is just with Classic Space. As a kid, thank you.
There you go.
Got one fan. I had a seriously unhealthy fascination with space as a kid, as I hope half of you did too. And yeah, Classic Space to this day. I've got a nice picture of Benny, the close-up of his head, upside down on my office wall with that great big smile on his face. He's ace.
And my, I think I had the polar opposite of Chris's experience. I had a younger brother as well, and we built a lot of Lego City, but there were no free builds in my family. It was, follow the instruction, and if a piece went missing, it was like Meltdown City. So that's how we built.
You're like almost done with a build, and no, what's this one piece? That's great. Douglas?
Yeah, unfortunately for me, I apparently had a deprived childhood, so I didn't have Legos and Lego bricks in my house until my kid brother, and so I've been making up for it as an adult ever since.
That's amazing. Well, what about Star Wars? What's your first experience with Star Wars? I mean, since we're talking about these two things coming together, anyone?
I can start maybe because again I'm old, but I was 17, I think when. Thank you, Keith. When the original movie came out, when I still call it Star Wars, so I don't call it A New Hope, I just call it Star Wars. But all my friends were into it, and I was in a play, and all my friends were suddenly like using these broomsticks to do lightsaber battles with each other, and I was like, what the heck is this? Oh, it's this amazing movie, Star Wars. So I went to see it in my hometown in New Jersey, and we got there. It had been out for like a month already, but there was still a huge line to get in. And we were late, and so we missed the first 5 minutes of it. So I missed that opening thing, the opening crawl, the opening shot. And the first thing I saw as I walked in with my popcorn was just Darth Vader busting through that door. It took a while to sort of figure out what this was about. But once we did, I loved it so much. And then I went and saw it again. 3 weeks later, I went to a big theater, and I sat in the very first row and just waited for that opening shot, and just blew me away. So that goes back to 1977.
Wow, that's great.
I'll chime in on that too, because I'm old too.
Oh, very good, very good, very good.
So I saw it in the theaters as well, and similar to what you were saying, I went in, it was a friend's birthday, and we went in to see this movie. We didn't really know what it was. It was just, okay, a big deal. So we walked in, and as it opened, that opening shot of the Star Destroyer coming overhead, that just kept going, and the farther it went, the lower my jaw dropped on this, and from that point I was hooked. It was like nothing I'd seen before, and just really loved it since then.
What about you, Jens?
Well, I'm joining the New Hope Club. But,
the New Hope Club?
Yeah, but in another way, because actually I didn't see the movie at that time. I remember, I think I was in first grade or something when it came out, and but I didn't go to the cinema. It didn't happen that often. Instead, I learned about the story through comics, and I was really into comics. So I totally knew the story, of course. And I made my own drawings based on those, and I, by the way, kept them. I have them today. But so again, for me, it was A New Hope that was really, the turning point.
Yeah, I was really lucky. I was 5 years old in 1978 when it was properly released in the UK, and that was my first cinema experience. So that was an amazing first showing. So as soon as I come out of that cinema, I was completely hooked on Star Wars. And my poor mum, I hounded her relentlessly to buy the Star Wars figures after that. So, mum, soz.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Douglas.
Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, for me, it was Return of the Jedi on home video. Didn't get the theatrical experience, but, the creatures, Jabba, the palace, the Ewoks, that really sort of hooked me as a kid. And I don't even think I realized that there was a bigger story of Luke and his friends, probably closer to I was 9 or 10 years old, and got into the trilogy proper.
So I'll take the glass half full approach that I'm fortunate enough to be old enough to have seen it in the theaters. My uncle was the first in my family to see it, and he came home raving about this film. Took me and my younger cousin to see it, and obviously, like everyone else, we're blown away. And we spent the whole car ride home, imagining ourselves inside the Star Wars universe and the stories we would have and, the things we would do. And my uncle came up with these great Star Wars names for us that we were super in love with, which turned out to be just our names spelled backwards. So later on, we figured out it wasn't as magical as we thought it was.
That's fantastic. And now you all work on both. That's amazing, just dream jobs. It's like a dream come true, and you must have so much fun. I want to take us back to the beginning, though, because this is the 20th anniversary of Lego Star Wars. Jens, Chris, what were those early days like? Let's start with you, Jens. Now, your first Lego Star Wars project was what?
Well, when I started at Lego in 1998, there wasn't anything like Lego Star Wars. But when I entered the design department, it was the first thing I saw, because there was some sketch models standing there in our office, and there were some people working on sketch models for that. So I don't think at that time the contract was signed yet, but it was in the works. So and when I saw that, I was just super excited. I just thought, I want to work on this. So I went straight to my boss and asked, if this is going to happen, I need to work on this project. And well, it happened, and then I started on Lego Star Wars like 6 months later or so.
Wow. So you knew you were going to have a great job at Lego, and then you arrive and you see Star Wars prototypes essentially there. That's amazing. What was your first Lego Star Wars project? Do you remember your first, maybe it was a vehicle, or do you know what it was?
Yeah, I remember the first one, and that's, well, it was super exciting at that time because we did a lot of experimenting to get the design right and so on. But I was working on a model that was, it was called 7150. It was a double set with 2 ships in it. That was Darth Vader's TIE Fighter and the Y-Wing, and I did the Y-Wing.
Oh, wow, you did the Y-Wing.
So, yes.
Here he is! That's fantastic, yeah, so he did the Y-Wing. Yeah.
And actually, it's funny because very similar. I had just started at Lucasfilm. We had, come to the agreement and that we were going to work together, which was fantastic because it was 2 just beloved brands that were, coming together for the first time. And actually, I think it was the first time I met was Jens's first trip out. We were at Skywalker Ranch at the time. So I'd just been there a couple of months, and here comes the Lego team in, to do these new designs. And I was just a Padawan at the time. But one of my first things that I did there was we were designing the models, and I had to put them together. And so I spent a day putting this stuff together, and I thought that at that point I figured this is going to be a pretty cool job.
Yeah, I think so. Well, and then of course this was around the development of The Phantom Menace. This was around the prequel time. We saw, I think, a slide earlier where there were some pod racers that you guys worked on. Can you talk about some of those? Do you have a favorite? Did you work on those? And do you have a favorite pod racer?
Well, everybody more or less in the team were working on the pod racers, and it was really a challenge to create those. And I think, well, one of them, my favorites, is Sebulba's pod racer.
Yeah.
Well, I like Anakin's, of course, as well, because it's the best one. But the challenge of Sebulba's pod racer, both because of the shape, we could clearly see this is going to be a difficult one to create, and then I really love the striking color scheme.
Oh, that's cool. Did you have a reaction when you saw any of those Lego Phantom Menace pod racers coming in, or?
Oh yeah, it was amazing. It was, I mean, just because the way we work together is on the Lucasfilm side, we bring the story, we bring the reference, we know what the vehicles are and the characters that we're going to do, and we'll bring that information in. And it's great to see it kind of come to life there in that way. And you see, I think on the slide, yeah. So you see the 2 different versions. This kind of shows the first one was the very first pod racer set that we worked on, and then the second shot there is a later version that we did, and it kind of shows the evolution of it in a way. And that the second one was one that I really distinctly remember because I was working with Jens on it, and we were reviewing the model and trying to figure out design and shape. And one of the things we do is I kind of know what the designers want and what the filmmaker's vision of this is, so we try to get the model as close as possible. And we were looking at the engine, and there was a piece that just wasn't quite coming together the way we wanted it to. So I was saying, if this, this part in the middle here, if it could look a little bit different. But I remember distinctly, Jens kind of went, hold on, and disappeared, and then came back, a minute later with exactly the right piece to put in it, and I thought, this guy has every single Lego brick memorized.
In a briefcase or something?
Yeah,
like, how did that work?
And it just came in with exactly the right piece. And that's but you can see the difference. It's, and that's one of the great things about some of the 20th anniversary sets as well. You kind of see what it was originally and how far it's come now. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun doing it.
That's a great story. Well, since I want to ask some other questions about working with Star Wars and Lucasfilm, some of maybe your fondest memories working with Lucasfilm and Star Wars. Maybe we'll start with animation, Michael, or if you have any fond memories over the last 20 years.
Well, it might be the first, because when I first got hired to write Padawan Menace, that was a pitch that they kind of solicited pitches from writers, and so I just wrote up this 3-page thing about these kids on a bus trip, to the Galactic Senate, and I got a call from my agent saying, that's the one they want to do. And so I was super excited. And then they flew me up to San Francisco to Lucas headquarters in the Presidio. And I got to meet Howard Rothman, who amazing, wonderful man, and Derek. And they took me to lunch, and I walked through ILM and walked under like E.T.'s bicycle and everything. And it was just so amazing just to be there, and then to be told by Howard just to go have fun with it and just have a good time and like don't worry about offending us too much or whatever, just have fun. And then so that took my marching orders, and that's been all the things I did after that all stemmed from that one lunch, like back in I think that was in 2010. I'll never forget that day. It was like one of the greatest days of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, honestly, I think one of the reasons that this partnership has been so successful is because all of us at LEGO who work on Star Wars are huge Star Wars fans. I mean, anyone who ever comes into my office, I have more Boba Fett statuettes probably than a 50-year-old man should. But that's part of the way and part of the reason that we connect with the fans, because we are fans and we love the brand, and it goes both ways. I think one of my personal favorite moments was the very first piece of content, animated content that we did back in 2005. There was a small documentary about the making of that, and Mark Hamill actually narrated the documentary. So it was just, he came in and said, "Hi, I'm Mark," and I'm like, "Yeah, we all know you're Mark." But just stuff like that, and sometimes you're like, I get paid to do this. It's amazing. So yeah.
That's fantastic. Anything on the game side, maybe Jeremy or?
Oh, blimey. Yeah, I mean, really, we used to, a friend of mine, John Hodgkinson, he's actually the original programmer of LEGO Star Wars 1. And we always just used to laugh that we're actually getting paid to do our hobby, it's fantastic. But we were lucky enough during the making of LEGO Star Wars 1 to go to Industrial Light and Magic and see the third film before it's released. So early, in fact, that it was just little snippets. And there was a lady there with this great big long piece of paper with all the little edits, and she'd play one after the other in sequence. But
bringing it up on the Avid, right? In a little room. Yeah.
And it was a great experience to obviously go to Industrial Light and Magic and see that great film just right there on the CRT TV as well. It was, yeah,
little TV. Yeah, that's great. Anyone else? Douglas? No, you good? Okay. Well, I want to ask what your, excuse me here. Oh, no, lost it. Do you have a favorite piece of content, a favorite project that you worked on over the last 20 years? Anybody?
Yeah, I can start, I guess.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite sets that we did was the Death Star. Right?
Yes.
The big Death Star.
You guys know that Death Star, right? It's huge.
All the scenes in it, because one of the things we do that is really important to basically all of us here, I'm sure, is you want to draw from story. That's what everybody loves. That's what sort of the root of this is. So we pull from story. And whereas the story about Sebulba's Pod Racer is more matching, exactly as set, this was matching a number of favorite moments in it. So we tried to get as much in there as possible, of all the different favorite scenes in the detention center and the conference room and everything else. And it was just amazing. I had a list before we started that we got to get this and we got to get this. And I think we got all of them in there, which was really amazing. And I had this great thing. I think the one thing that we couldn't fit in there was the games, the Stormtrooper hot tub, which would have been good to get in, but
But you couldn't build a literal to scale Death Star. As much as I'd love to see one fill this entire room,
that would be a challenge.
You filled it with story moments. That's great, and humor too. Anyone else have a favorite product that they worked on or project?
Well, it was probably the most challenging one, because we were kind of doing it in the dark, which is that I got a call early in 2015 saying, would you like to work on some things geared to the Force Awakens? And so I was like, yes, of course, of course. And so we did these things called the Resistance Rises, and but what happened was the movie wasn't finished yet. It was half done, and I had an amazing experience because I went to Josh's office in Burbank, and they locked me in a room, and I read the script, the screenplay to The Force Awakens. So I was like, oh my God! I was like, oh, I know all this amazing stuff. And then we had to write all these things, not knowing what anything was. Like I had to write the whole scene with Rathtars, and they were like, yeah, there are these, these like kind of these monster things, So we had to write the whole thing in the dark, and
literally in the dark.
Yeah, literally, yeah, because we hadn't seen anything. And then I think once at Celebration, 4 years ago, when they first unveiled the first trailer, they were like, oh, okay, that's what that looks like. That's who that is. That's what Rey looks like. That's who Finn is. And then we were able to sort of fix it, work on it some more after that. But even like Maz, they had no idea what she looked like at that time, or even who she was, or whatever. They kept saying, like, I was like, who's this person, Maz? We don't quite know yet. We finally did, in time to get the thing done. But yeah, that was amazing.
Anyone else favorite piece of content over the last 20 years?
Well, I can talk about my favorite model.
Yes, your favorite Lego model.
One of them, actually, I have many. I also really like the Death Star, but one that's special to me is the first UCS Millennium Falcon that came out in 2000.
Yeah, 2007?
Was
that it? Was
7 or 8? I think it was 7.
Yeah.
Because at that time, that was the biggest Lego model ever, and it started out as a side project just for fun. I was just building it for fun. And then it ended up as a product. But I have to say at that time, making a model with more than 5,000 pieces was totally not heard of in Lego. We've never done that before. So it turned out to be also a logistic and, production-wise, a bit of a nightmare because of the box size with the number of elements and so on. But it was kind of setting a new standard for how big we can create models. And now I know that my model is by far, it's not the biggest anymore. Now we have the new one that came out.
Right, you topped yourself 5,000 pieces.
So that's nothing.
It's nothing nowadays, right?
Hans, one of the designers, his model is far better than mine. I hate to say it, but that's how it is.
Wow, how many of you had that Millennium Falcon? Look at that. How many of you got the new Millennium Falcon? Look at that! Wow, that's amazing. Any other favorite projects over the years? Yeah.
Yeah, and this is going to sound weird coming from a content guy, but I have to throw to the games guys. And the thing is we do tons and tons of kid focus groups and testing. And we ask this question to the kids when they're in the focus groups, what was your first experience with Star Wars? And as time moved on, our kids would say, well, the Lego Star Wars video game was my first touch point. And we hear that all the time, and we've heard that more and more, and it's just powerful because, again, another old guy up here, my entry point, obviously, were the original films, but there's a whole generation of kids who their first contact with both of our brands is the work that you guys do.
I want to ask a follow-up question to that point because I want to get back to games. Just to go back a little bit, humor was brought up before, and it brings up this great point, which is how in video games do you navigate the Star Wars saga in its serious moments, fantastic worlds, vehicles, creatures, in a video game form, and even dramatically? What were some of the challenges in bringing those video games to life?
Yeah, obviously we're remaking or reimagining some of the most beloved and well-known, movies and TV shows of all time. But what Lego gives us is the opportunity to take serious moments, sort of flip them on their head with humor and whimsy. And you got a little sneak peek of what I was going to talk about earlier. Like for example, when we did the Death Star or the Starkiller base sequence from Force Awakens, how do you take a moment where the bad guys are blowing up planets all around the galaxy and infuse some humor with it? And where you see here, we take a moment, we play it very seriously, but when the stormtroopers all turn around to watch Starkiller base fire, they put on 3D glasses. And it takes just enough of it, a little bit of edge off of the moment so it can be accessible and fun for kids too.
Uh-oh.
And Chris broke the chair.
You mentioned too, I think it was earlier you were talking about one of the most famous scenes in all of Star Wars, which is, "No, I am your father." Yeah. And how do you do that? With humor? How do you do it with Lego? They're not even speaking. you know, at least at the time?
Yeah, that was the challenge in the early days. We didn't do VO, so all of it was gibberish and pantomime, and so it forced us to be real creative about how we conveyed these very serious moments. So you have the I am your father moment from Empire Strikes Back, which he can't say the lines. So instead what we do is we have Vader pull out a Polaroid of Padme and Anakin and show it to Luke as sort of the, no, I really am your father.
And that's one of the best moments. That is just one of the best moments. How have your favorite moments changed over time? Because you said it started with gibberish, you know, or pantomime, but it's changed over the years. How have some of your favorite projects in Lego matured as you've gone on over the past 20 years? Anyone?
Well, I got to start at Lucasfilm Animation as Lucasfilm and Lego were really partnering up in a bigger way with the storytelling. And that first project I joined was the Freemaker Adventures.
Yeah, give it up for Freemakers.
I think our showrunners are in the audience somewhere, so hello to Bill and Bob. And thank you for your hard work. But that show really sort of evolved some of the storytelling in creating a brand new cast of characters to pull their own story through, while at the same time taking place in between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi and seeing all of our favorite characters interact with them. But it really became Rowan and the Freemaker family's story, and that was a big, I think, step forward for storytelling in Lego Star Wars.
That's great.
I think just to build on that, one of my favorite content pieces are what we're doing right now, so based on the greatest battles built by you, which is taking storytelling to the next level, where we're actually asking fans and kids to tell us their greatest battle stories, making that into content. So
the future is incredible, and I definitely I want to touch on this again later, because you're going to have an announcement at the end of the panel.
Yeah, we've got some good teasing content to show for that.
Well, let's hold off on that. I want to ask you, Chris. So you mentioned earlier too, when you look at the maturity of, say, the first pod racer to the second pod racer, obviously the number of pieces has matured, but so have the kinds of pieces that you've made. You've delved deeper into the Star Wars universe, expanded universe even. Any comments there? Any thoughts over the last 20 years?
Yeah, actually, I mean, it is, and you've seen the evolution as you see maybe how the pod racer changed, or how an early Millennium Falcon relates to some of the latest ones like the Force Awakens or whatever else that we did, and the range of bricks and things like that changes. But one of the challenges is still the way these are developed. We're kind of working from existing pieces, so you don't always have exactly the right piece, and you have to get really creative. And so sometimes, you know, we've ended up having to kind of problem solve something in a very creative way and use a piece that, you know, wasn't necessarily intended originally that way, you know, to finish the model. I think we were just talking about it. Battle droid arms actually end up as pieces, you know, in various, because they're great connectors. So it's, you know, getting creative with, you know, how you can do that, and we've learned to do that over the years quite adeptly.
So you not only use other bits that you've created specifically for Star Wars and other kits, but you've also mentioned, I think we were talking backstage, and you said, you know, when you started with Star Wars, there were certain pieces that you had to build from scratch that you didn't have. Do any sort of unique pieces that are specific to Star Wars come to mind in terms of the little pieces, you know, lightsaber hilt or anything like that?
Yeah, well, we have created some special elements, but in general, as also Chris is talking about, we're always trying to create our models out of existing pieces, and that's also to show the versatility of Lego as such, to show that basically you can build everything out of the bricks you have at home in your bin. So we're trying. We of course sometimes making it very often cockpit elements or something that can be hard to create. That we're making new elements, but we're trying to avoid it because we want to show and use our creativity and inspire people to use their own creativity.
So it's almost like it's more Lego to have less original pieces and use the pieces that already exist. That's almost the whole nature of Lego.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great. Well, I wanted to ask you too, all of you, you've mentioned some of your favorite moments. What are some sort of creative pivotal moments over the last 20 years? A great example is when you moved from, say, just gibberish and pantomime to fully voiced game like The Force Awakens. Any other really kind of aha moments where it was a really pivotal creative decision that got made in Lego Star Wars from your perspective?
Yeah, I can address one thing is, you know, we started out, story is always a key part of what we do and always will be, you know, drawing directly from the films and other places. But one of the things was early on, one of the first times we used inspiration that wasn't directly pulled from a film was the TIE Crawler set, which was a vehicle that was introduced in publishing, actually, first, one of the novels. And it's, you know, kind of like a TIE fighter tank. It was a great design, and it worked great as a Lego set, but we weren't, you know, it was kind of the first time we went off script, so to speak, and it was really well received, and it made us realize that we've kind of, between, you know, Lego and Star Wars, built such a great depth of the world that we could go, you know, explore different areas, and, you know, we did that one step further, I guess, with, you know, Jack 14 and what the Jedi Scout Fighter that we did, which was you know, based on a existing Star Wars design, the E-Wing, but, you know, we kind of explored that Lego Star Wars universe a little bit more, and that, of course, leads to Freemakers and things like that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the way we used to produce Lego Star Wars content is some folks at Lego would go to Lucasfilm and pitch some ideas that we have, and, you know, today, you know, we develop with the folks who are making great Star Wars content, just kind of as another avenue to make Lego Star Wars content. So we do it together, and you know, when we started talking about Freemakers, it just became apparent that these characters are going to have to become part of the Star Wars canon, which is, you know, again, for such a fan, it's like we get to create characters that become part of the Star Wars canon. I mean, that's just fantastic. You do it every day, but I don't do it every day.
Yeah, I say, it's exciting, and I think, you know, even beyond the Freemakers, seeing, you know, relationships that like Mike Price created, like, you know, the Emperor and Darth Vader, with that very sort of office-like vibe, sort of, you know,
worst boss ever.
Worst boss ever, exactly. But you know, Bill and Bob and the Freemaker creative team, you know, pulled that relationship into Freemaker Adventures, and Jack 14 guest starred, and then there are great characters that came from Freemaker Adventures that have sort of lived all over the sort of Lego Star Wars timeline, including Roger the Battle Droid and Graballa the Hutt. So we just keep creating.
Yeah, Jack was so fun because that was the first time, because the shows I had done previously were just really just based on the existing characters, and then John McCormick from Lego, you know, brought me in to Yoda Chronicles, and that's where the Jack 14 thing came in, and we came up with this whole other story, and then it involved as other characters, and then we had the bad Padawans, the Badawans, and it was so much fun to then sort of create our own stuff and have our own kind of internal canon as well, you know, because we had Lando's father, Lindo, you know, with the Disco Millennium Falcon and all that kind of stuff. So, and then he came back later in Droid Tales. So it was fun to sort of pull some of the things from the sillier shows into the later kind of more canon things like Droid Tales, and have it all be part of this like new kind of fun universe.
So in terms of pivotal moments, I need to mention Tom Stone. Tom Stone is the managing director of TT Games. He worked at Lego in 2003. And it was him that came up with the idea to actually make a video game from Lego and Star Wars.
Which was a radical idea at the time. I remember.
It really was.
Yeah.
And what he'd seen in the game that he released before that was that there was a market for really good movie tie-ins, because prior to that, movie game tie-ins were just... They're fairly average, you know.
With the exception of Star Wars games, of course.
Obviously, with the exception of all Star Wars games. But yeah, he saw an opportunity to make children's games that were really good movie tie-ins, specifically aimed at a younger audience. So, yeah.
That's great. Well, I mean, it seems like this partnership between Lego and Star Wars isn't showing any signs of slowing down. And I wanted to ask an open question to all of you, why you think that is. One thing that comes to mind right away is your comment, Michael, about creating original characters, original stories. It's kind of taking on a life of its own almost. But what is it that is so healthy about this relationship? What is so simpatico about these two brands, Lego and Star Wars?
I mean, I think, the essence of the two companies is very much down to creativity, right? And I think that's really the strength of the two companies and the collaboration that we have together. That's kind of the essence, what brings us together. And then I think the two gentlemen sitting next to me is a key pillar as well. I mean, their passion for both companies and both brands also plays a huge part in that great collaboration that we have.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you, Therese. I could just add to one thing that I also think that's pretty amazing is the fact we have these amazing Star Wars stories that's being passed on from generation to generation. And we also have a toy where the same thing's happening. So yeah, that's also where we are very alike.
There's cultural similarities there and sort of family similarities in terms of family appeal. Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, give the TT guys a lot of credit. I mean, a lot of what the other folks are doing are coming off of that very pivotal first game. I mean, that was something that we weren't doing in Star Wars. Our games were very serious. We were doing Knights of the Old Republic. We were working on Republic Commando. We were working on Battlefront. Shout out. Lots of love. But this was a real radical change for us in terms of the way we approach video games, using humor and whimsy. And it did create that very, very incredible touch point between generations that we talk about all the time with Star Wars. And I do hear it all the time from people like the first way they introduce the movies to their kids is often by playing the games, because it's a safe, accessible, easy way to bring them into the franchise. And that just continues as we make more content, for sure.
And just lastly, building off the brand fit, I mean, both companies care deeply about kids. And there wouldn't be a relationship this long if that wasn't the case, and if that wasn't really core to both of the brand values. And everything that we do from a content development standpoint, kids are our primary audience. We love that adults like it too, but we're always trying to look at it through that lens of as a fan, as a kid, is this going to make you laugh, and is this going to make you have a good Lego Star Wars experience?
Wow, that's a great answer. I love that. Is there anything, and this might be a question that some of you can't answer, but is there anything that hasn't been made, Lego Star Wars, that you feel like needs to be made? Any thoughts there? Or can you even say, I don't know?
Boba Fett helmet that I can wear. And I will wear it.
No pressure, no pressure. Anyone else?
I'd love to see an Ultimate Collector's Edition of an AT-AT Walker. I think wow.
Are you writing this down?
I'm memorizing. Yeah, thank you for the input.
But so there are so many ships, locations, creatures, things like that you can just go even deeper into the canon, right?
Yeah, you're right, there's so much. And also with all new content coming and so on, there's so much to, how do you say, create things from ships, scenes and so on. So I'm sure we would have enough for at least another 20 years.
I do have to point out, though, Jens is Danish, and he just said, thank you for your input. And in Danish, that means, yeah, I'm not making any of that stuff that you guys
are. He is right.
That's great. Well, let's talk about the future. Maybe some things you can talk about. You mentioned it earlier, Teresa. You started to hint at it. What can we look forward to in the future? Anything that you have to share for us here at Celebration today that you can tell us here for the first time?
Well, we do have something pretty exciting going on here right at Celebration. And after 20 years of LEGO Star Wars and many, many years of storytelling in the LEGO Star Wars universe, we thought that, as part of our celebration in 2019, we would ask you, the fans, to tell us your greatest Star Wars stories, your greatest battle stories. And so if you go to the LEGO booth on the floor, right next door is a smaller room with some very nice filmmakers who are recording you for you to come tell us your stories. And we're going to pick 20 of those and make those into some really cool, awesome animations that were told to us by you. So you'll be doing the narration and the voiceover, and then we're gonna use those as part of our celebration towards the end of the year.
Wow, that's amazing.
And we have a little clip to inspire you of what that might be able to look like.
Do you want to see it? Let's take a look.
I'm Tom, and this is my LEGO Star Wars battle story. Taking out the trash. Wouldn't it be awesome if the rebels were just hanging out on Hoth, thinking they had just found the best hiding spot in the galaxy? But then Darth Vader's annoying droid finds them anyway and tells Darth Vader. He sends down all these big walkers to catch the rebels. But the rebels were like, no, we don't want to get caught. So this giant epic snow battle starts, and it's totally crazy. There's lasers and blasters and explosions. And then Luke and the pilots fly over and try blasting some stuff. But Luke realizes that the walker's armor is too strong for blasters. So he thinks of a different plan. But when they land to tell the other rebel soldiers his new plan, he sees that some of them are running away. And some were trying to pretend to be Wampas to hide like a bunch of goofs. So Luke is like, alrighty, follow me, guys. I got a better plan than this. So him and the other pilots head over to the rebel base. And Luke is like, come on, we gotta go to the garbage hanger. The other pilots would have been like, what? But then Luke was like, no time for questions. We have to build this old snow speeder into a garbage truck. So they get to work building this awesome flying garbage truck. And then they throw a bunch of old bananas in the truck and fly back out to the walkers. And Luke lands the big garbage truck by the feet and dumps out some bananas. And then the walker totally slips on the bananas. That got it. Luke flies around to the rest of the big walkers and takes them out too. And then the rebels escape since Luke took out those big walkers that were in the way. And that's my battle story. The end.
Yeah.
So please come tell us your stories. We'd love to make them into animation.
That's amazing. So of all the battles in Star Wars, all the amazing scenarios, the best ones are the ones that we come up with when we're playing. And so just to repeat, you're able to bring your family to the Lego booth, which is right here on the show floor, and you will film the stories.
We're gonna record you guys telling us the stories. The actual animation takes a little time, so that'll come a little later.
Yeah. So you can bring your families there, and then you're going to pick the best 20 and turn them into what we just saw. That is fantastic. Very, very exciting. Now, what about on the sort of Lego kit or Lego brick front? Do you have anything that you can share that's coming up in the future?
No, it's secret, of course.
Thank you very much. Good night. I guess that's the end.
Actually, well, we have something to show you. So.
Do you want to see it? Oh, there it is. Look at that.
So this is our brand new 10T4 set.
Wow, that's beautiful. That is absolutely beautiful. What else can you tell us about this? What, release date, anything?
Yeah, I can tell you it's going to be released on May the 4th, but we actually, here at Celebration, we have 250 of those.
Here it is. Take a look at this. Oh, here, let me move my, I don't want to sully the 10T4 with my notes. Beautiful, careful, careful. Just kidding. Thank you. Thank you. Look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous. No, okay. Yeah, so I'm sorry, you were saying you have some of these at Celebration.
Yes, actually, we have 250 of them here that will be for sale, and they'll be in small quantities each day, and it's after the principle first come, first serve.
Starting when?
Starting already today at 3:30.
Okay.
So, but the model, I can also talk a little bit about that, because it is a model that's special to us at LEGO. We've done it 2 times before. Last time was 10 years ago. That was actually at our 10th anniversary. And we thought now it's time to bring it back, because it is one of our favorites. And when we are developing a new model, a new version of a model, we are starting totally from scratch. And it's the same thing with this one. So it is, how do you say, it's improved from the last time. And then, of course, we have some new minifigures in the set. And here I have...
Are you going to bust them out of your pocket?
Well, yeah, I got a few here. Well, one that's exclusive.
Hey, there he is.
Bail Organa. We have him. He's
Bail Organa. Very cool.
Exclusive. I also have what do I have? I have Princess Leia, and now she's wearing a real skirt. We have actually created a new element in Star Wars, which is this skirt element, first used in Sukus in the Slave 1 that came out as a 20th anniversary model. But now Princess Leia has a skirt, And who would think that a skirt element would be created by Lego Star Wars? It actually is.
Fantastic. What do you guys think? So just to reiterate what Jens said, there are 250 of these 10 and 4s here at Star Wars Celebration well before it is released on May the 4th. There'll be limited quantities available every day, starting today at 3:30. They're for sale at the Lego booth? Yes. At the Lego booth in the show floor. So if you need any more incentive beyond that to go to the Lego booth on the show floor, I don't know what it is. That is really, really amazing.
Well, you can actually also meet the designer who designed the set at the booth. I believe that's
well, there it is. Even more incentive.
More details on the sets and potentially also some signing if there's some interest there.
Actually, I can tell you that the sets have already been signed. So they are coming with Cesar Soares, the designer's signature, and mine.
Yeah. Well, now, before we wrap up, the good folks from LEGO did ask you for questions via Twitter, and I actually have a few here that I wanted to ask that are from the fans here. Here's some Twitter questions. What is the most complex process you've had to go through for a seemingly simple process? Something that you thought was going to be easy to do and just surprised the heck out of you as being something very complex. Anyone?
Well, I can start. If we're talking product, one thing that I remember that was a huge challenge for us was actually pod racers that we've been talking about before, where we had relatively small models. But I remember when we saw the first reference on those, it was the artist Doc Chang that made the concept art. We saw these drawings of 2 engines hanging in the air with a cockpit after it. It was like, how are we going to create that in Lego? But we came up with a solution. But I have to say that was one that took a lot of head scratching.
And that was right when you started, so no pressure. Welcome to your new job. Here, make these. That's great. Anyone else?
For me, it was probably taking all 6 original movies, plus some Clone Wars and Rebels, and putting them into 5 specials for Droid Tales, and figuring out how we get all these in there. How do we tell these stories? Because we wanted to tell the stories for maybe kids who had never seen those movies, but also be funny, and also kind of skip over some of the more, let's say, disturbing things for older people. So it was really, really tough. That was probably the hardest thing to do, but it was fun.
Yeah, and we had a similar challenge with our newest batch of animated content called Lego Star Wars All-Stars, which aired in the fall. And with that project, we wanted to feature the heroes from Solo and The Last Jedi, and we were doing some short form, some long form, and really just figuring out how to tell that story, especially while Solo was still in production, was challenging. And also, infusing those stories with some Freemaker backstory, epilogue style in The Last Jedi and prologue style in the Solo content. But if you watched all of the pieces of content, I think it makes sense. And if you watch them separately or online, I think that's fun too. So always trying to play with, where people are watching, how people are watching, and have it be sort of funny and delightful no matter how you watch.
That's great. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the hardest one for us was when we killed Han Solo in The Force Awakens. How do we make a moment like that funny even with Lego? Was a particularly difficult challenge. And the other movies, we had some space and time. People had a chance to accept what had happened, and we knew this was going to be a very sensitive topic. And how do we tell that in a joke? So we had to do some lookaways, and we must have iterated on that cinematic 50, 60 times, and I cannot tell you how many people had to see it before we had to finally get the thumbs up on it. But that was really, really challenging.
Just on that note as well, I mean, there was that was one time where you really saw an absolutely fantastic collaboration between Lego, Lucas, and TT Games, because everyone was involved in that, making sure that it had the right tone and the right level of humor, because it was a tricky scene.
Wow, that would be very, very tricky. I had another question from Twitter here. Do you think that you'll create a new Lego set even bigger than the VCS Millennium Falcon? I'm looking right at you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so happy about that question. But, well, I would say with UCS Millennium Falcon, we probably reached, how do you say, the limit of how big a model can get, because there's a limit of how much Lego bricks can hold together, how much weight. So it was a huge challenge to make that model, because to have the right stability in the model. So I think we've exceeded, or how to say, we've reached a level where we can't make them any bigger. But I know we said that 5 years ago as well, so I guess you never know what happens.
I'll still push for a life-size AT-AT, though.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Thank you, Chris.
That's great. And then the last one, this is a great question. Are there any great Star Wars scenes that you'd love to translate in the future? Maybe one that you haven't had a chance to tackle yet?
Well, I'm a huge fan of Clone Wars, and I know some other folks who are fans of Clone Wars as well, so I would love to make Star Wars Clone Wars. Just telling you.
Let's get on that.
Anyone else?
I would just go back into like some deep cut stuff, you know, like deleted scenes from the first movie, like the grandma rebel pilot. You know, you'll see Lego grandma the rebel pilot. That's what I'd like to see.
Lego holiday special not coming in.
Oh, wow, my God. Wow, that would be great. Sure.
This is not a pitch meeting that I've taken. Just a warning, and then I probably will never get one after that.
Lego Lumpy? Of course.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, on behalf of everyone in the audience and all of us that are Star Wars fans, anyone you know that's watching and listening in at home, thank you so much for all of the great memories and the fun of Lego Star Wars of the last 20 years. And here's to 20 years more. Give our panelists a round of applause, the creators of Lego Star Wars. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great Star Wars celebration. We'll see you soon.